I need it to click. Good evening. Now we are live. We were just thinking we were live and talking away there and realized we weren't live. So now we are live. Welcome, my friends. How are you both?
Doing well.
Good. Ready to do this for real.
Hello
Excellent.
again.
Yeah,
Yes. Greetings and salutations to all the monsters and mutants out there.
We were discussing A24, our ongoing poll, which we launched over the weekend. Your favorite A24 movie. So let's just jump straight in. Let's have some opening statements from you guys. Scott's joined us. Gina's with us. Hi guys, welcome. Justine, go ahead. Give us an opening monologue about A24 and your feelings towards it.
I love A24, so I definitely am more on this side of the debate. I know we're going to go into Blumhouse next week, but this is really my sweet spot. These movies are original. They keep your interest and your focus through the movie, which I think is something for me who's seen thousands of horror movies. I don't generally do. I get bored. I stop paying attention. Something terrible happens and it seems like it's kind of contrived and I'm just not really in it. A24 keeps me surprised and keeps me watching a movie, good or bad. So even their worst movie, honestly, it was a pleasure to watch. And again, they're definitely on that art house side, so I do favor that. And I love it. I mean, again, so I'm stoked about this week. When we get to Blumhouse, it's going to get weird.
Jamie?
I pretty much agree with that for the most part. Yeah, we were just saying when we were off the air that I felt like horror films had really been in a bit of a slump over the past decade. And as we watch kind of the remakes and the bad knockoffs peter out, 7-8 years ago, we're seeing a renaissance, a resurgence over the last 5 years, maybe a few less, maybe a little more, give or take. But it's always fun watching these resurgences come and this new wave of imagination where filmmakers and writers are getting away from having to make so many concessions to get their films made. Once they get them across the green light line, they're able to just kind of set loose and let their imaginations run wild. And we're seeing a lot of really, really, really great films coming out over a few years. Like I was saying, I had a hard time just ranking these just because, they're all so much fun. But I'm pretty much on Justine's side about the Blumhouse. They're definitely more on the other end.
Questionable.
Yeah, well, I think it's a classy thing, slightly less classy than the A24 output, but we will be getting into that. Amanda's joined us. Hey Amanda, how you doing? Robert's with us and Robin as well. So
hi.
Hey. Make sure you guys comment, get involved, let us know your faves, let us know your opinions. We are going to be discussing the films on the poll there. Make sure you go to www.madmonster.com if you haven't already, and you can do your vote. Make your vote count for your favorite A24 film. This is the promotion that's going on all this week. So yeah, make sure you vote, get your friends and family to vote on your favorite A24 film. Let's jump in and discuss a movie that not a lot of people have seen. Justine, I know this is one of your faves. It's a movie called In Fabric.
I have the red nails for it, see? I even bought the dress.
You're ready.
Yeah, I am ready.
So yeah, In Fabric is a very unusual movie. Tell us a little bit more about it.
So the thing with In Fabric is when you read kind of like what it's about, or even if you watch the trailer, you might be like, I don't know, this looks like it might be cool, but it's probably gonna let me down. Depending on, again, actually which poster art you see too. I think the dress poster art is a little bit more boring than when it gets into the hands and the mannequins, which is a little bit more true to the movie, I think. So it doesn't necessarily make you feel like you have to watch it, but I feel like you do have to watch it. And it's hard because not a lot of people have seen it. So I think it would have ranked a lot differently if everyone had seen it on this list, and I think it's going to get credit for. But it's weird. It's different. It's a delight. I don't even know where to go. The soundtrack is amazing. Visually, it's amazing. The way it's laid out is amazing because it's two stories kind of put into one. And it's not your average horror kind of topic. When you ask your average horror fan, like, do you want to watch a movie about a killer dress? They're going to be like, no. Why would I want to watch that? But it's very different than I think you think it's going to be. I think the acting is great in it. It's really different in every way you could imagine. And it is a delightful surprise to me, but it is weird. And you should not have children around to watch it. That's all I can really say without spoiling anything.
Yeah, agreed. Jamie, have you seen it?
No, that's a new one for me. It's been on my to watch list. I remember hearing a lot of good things about it in the horror circles.
It's 99 cents on Prime. It's worth the $1. Rent it tonight, everybody.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's gone down in price because it was like $5 I think there for a while, but it was a little bit tough to find. Directed by a guy called Peter Strickland, and he's done a movie called Duke of Burgundy, which again, very strange movie, but visually incredible. And also he made a movie called Barbarian Sound Studio. I'm not sure if you guys saw that one.
Oh yeah, a few years back.
I haven't seen either of them. I know that I will now because I liked In Fabric so much. But I've seen them. Like, I've seen them to watch, and I never pulled the switch to do it. But now I have a reason. So. Yeah,
I mean, if you liked In Fabric, you probably enjoyed Bavarian Sound Studios. It's a pretty interesting little film.
I love it. I can't even wait. That's partially what's really cool, I think, about A24 is it gives you another movie to piggyback that you want to watch, whether you like it or not. It makes you want to see more from a director, and I don't feel like in modern horror you always get to do that, or you get to compare them, you get to talk about them. It's really nice.
Yeah, Gina's saying Enemy and In Fabric are the only two I'm not crossed off the list, and Amanda, one of the few A24 movies I didn't get to go to. It's I don't know what the publicity machine was doing with this film, because it could have really fit in the sweet spot of the festival circuit and the award season as well, because it's like you said, Justine, it's visually pretty incredible film, and it's a totally unique story. Marianne Jean-Baptiste stars in the film. She's not a lot of people know, but she's an Academy Award nominated actress for her work on one of Mike Leigh's films, Secrets and Lies, and she really kind of holds your attention in the film. She's a great actress. So yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. It's good acting. The soundtrack, the score is incredible. It's worth downloading right now as well. Go do your iTunes, your Spotify, get that. Watch the movie, you'll be obsessed. But there's nothing I have to say about it that's really negative. I mean, it's not the most cohesive story, I guess, but everything overweighs that it doesn't really matter,
Yeah, if you read about it online as well, a lot of people compare it to Suspiria, Argento's kind of non-linear narrative. And you've actually written a fantastic little review which is up on manmonster.com. So yeah,
everybody read it, say something.
If you need any more incentive to check out this film, and they really should have hired you, Justine, to work on the publicity campaign for the film.
I'd love to. If I can still get the job, A24, give me a call. I really, really am behind In Fabric. I think it's amazing. I bought a haunted red dress immediately after watching it, so I'm sure I'll pull that out sometime in the future for everything. But
where did you get a haunted red dress from?
It's basically, I don't know if you know about this too, not to get too nerdy, but they picked the dress that they did because the plot of a 36 in UK is like a woman's extra small here. So that's why as you go throughout the movie, everyone's like, that won't fit me, but it magically fits them. So they had to design the dress so that it fit different body types, because obviously a man wears it as well. So basically that's kind of the running joke in it, that it's always a 36 and nobody's an extra small, but they keep fitting into it perfect. So they designed this red chiffon dress that would be very flattering on all different body types. So I found a floor length red chiffon dress that looks very, very similar. and it will be my own possessed haunted dress that I will debut somewhere at some point. But I love it. I love it. I'm gonna paint my nails red forever now. I can't. I love Din Fabric. It's so weird, in the best possible way.
Well, now that we've hyped it up, hopefully a few people are going to go check it out, and then maybe we'll invite you back and have like a deep dive on the film. And
Ready.
Jamie, you've got to make sure you see it as well. So, guys, what
Yeah.
was your favorite A24 movie?
You go first.
For me, definitely The Lighthouse. Yes, I thought you were
The
throwing it back
Lighthouse.
at
Oh, wait, your
more,
favorite
yes.
or your least favorite?
My favorite.
Oh, your
Or did
favorite was
you-
Lighthouse?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
Wow.
good.
You asked
Okay.
for favorite, right? Okay, heard that right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really
love
loved it. Just for so many reasons. I think it's interesting that it's come out now, but if it were, I mean, it came out, earlier in the year, but if it were released like a year from now, it easily could have been a film that was filmed during all this pandemic bit where we're having to deal with social distancing and not being able to produce film projects like we've been able to over the past few years. And the way that it just kind of really scales back on everything. I love films that are about like a confusion of identity, just kind of a mix of the real with the surreal. And it's very much just a long, dark character study. And now a lot of things that I like about it will apply to many films that we might talk about tonight. Character studies, kind of a slow burn, great music. That was one thing you mentioned before. I think this is not a motif, but definitely a quality that you'll find in a lot of these films. Just stellar acting, fantastic music, the original ideas. But the first thing that strikes you with The Lighthouse is the framing. They went with the old time 1920s aspect ratio, 1:19:1, which is what we might know as full frame rather than widescreen or CinemaScope type framing. And immediately that draws you into the claustrophobia of this entire setting, because you're coming to the lighthouse aboard the boat, and you see the two men lined up within the frame, and they're almost crowded in by the edges of the frame in something that get a little bit nerdy, like the film noir might refer to as liminalism, like framing something, framing its silhouette in something. And it's just kind of a motif that runs from metaphor all the way down to the literal. But the story itself is late 19th century lighthouse keepers that are trying to keep this light going and then trying to keep themselves from slowly going insane. And the great thing about it is, once you get to the end of it, all the things that you saw happen ostensibly happened, but then things that you saw may or may not have happened as well. And it's all kind of left up to you as the viewer and participant and witness to this line of events as to determine, what really happened and where did it all go. But to me, it's very Lovecraftian in nature, and I really like that.
Absolutely. And the sound design is another thing that I think a lot of people miss out on. It's the sound of that lighthouse, that honk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It becomes so kind of haunting throughout the film. Justine, what were your opinions on The Lighthouse?
I mean, to
Top five?
just talk about that, yeah, absolutely. But to talk about that sound thing too, it's kind of like Texas Chainsaw, that clicking of the flash on the camera. That noise always makes me think of it. So it's very much like that with Lighthouse. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I can't say anything other than it was beautiful. The way they picked the contrast to use in the black and white is just incredible. I did watch it and think this director clearly has a hard-on for Antichrist. Having said that, I did not like Antichrist the way that I loved Lighthouse. So definitely whatever nods I saw in there of it, or I saw that this director secretly is really into that movie, I thought it was done way better. So it's weird to compare those, but Antichrist, not one of my favorite movies. This definitely had nods to it, but I thought it was amazing. I know a lot of people that hated Lighthouse, but I loved it. I think it's beautiful. It's different. It's beautiful. It's weird. It's left to, again, it's very artsy. It's left to interpretation a lot. So, you know, you can do what you want with it, but not in a way that looks sloppy, like they just didn't want to tell you what was supposed to be going on, in a way that's kind of intended. So I think it was incredible.
Yeah, but Robert agrees. You know, I
Yeah.
thought it was an excellent film. Robert Eggers is the same director as The Witch, and The Witch, I think was the movie that kind of broke the mold for a lot of people, because horror had been in, you know, the doldrums for a long time, but after The Witch, people started to take horror quite seriously. Um, Not everyone likes The Witch. Um, Jamie,
Not
what were your
everyone.
thoughts? What were your thoughts on that one?
I did not like The Witch personally at all, but here's what, I've only seen it once. I did watch it with someone that violently hated it, so I'm sure that that didn't actually help while I was trying to like be neutral while watching it. I absolutely joke about it all the time. I probably really should rewatch it. I think Gina talked about it yesterday at the Runaway Stars Black Phillip, you know, a goat, which is rad, but maybe not just, I don't know, it wasn't the be and all and end all. Like that's a side note and the greatest part of the movie, and it's minimal to me. I feel like it is slow burn, but it's the kind of slow burn movie that I hate. It's just boring. It's a snooze fest. It never gets anywhere. It's misleading. It's boring. And it's not that I mind the old English. I think that's cool. I appreciate the art in it, but it's boring. It's just not good. Like I'm not pretentious enough to pretend that I like it just because he did some cool things or tried something different. Granted, it did start all of this and, you know, the change of the movie, so I will give it its due, but I personally would
Is
pass.
it possible that you might need to give it a second watch?
No, absolutely. I hands down admit that I may feel differently when I watch it again. Um, but I don't know that it would turn me into liking it, but I definitely might feel slightly different. But yeah, it definitely one time watch was enough for me at this point so far. But I will watch it again before we finish this.
I think Jenny's with you there. She couldn't get into the Witch either. Yeah, it's again, it's like it's love it or hate it movie, isn't it? Jamie, what were your thoughts on it?
It's another slow burn. It's one that I need to revisit as well. I mean, I sat through it once. It slowly won me over. It took me a long time to get used to those sorts of films, but I thought in the end the payoff was worth it, and yeah, I liked it. It didn't quite hit all the same notes for me that the Lighthouse hit. If I can throw anything back to that, I did want to mention that well, it does have some of the same elements in that it kind of portrays itself as a modern Gothic, where in Gothic films the setting is always a part of the story. It's always as much a part of the character. It's always as much a character as any of the other characters in the film. And you can apply that to a lot of things that we're talking about, whether it's the lighthouse with the literal lighthouse, which becomes this symbol and this physical thing that must be tended to, but also the symbolic, whatever it is up there in the lights, and all the way to Midsummer, where you have, this great setting of this, I don't know if you want to call it a colony or whatever it is that they have, their little village that they have set up, and all the pagan trimmings and rituals and everything that you go to it, all the way to the witch. And you see those kind of those Gothic trimmings throughout, in that the setting is very much adds to the foreboding. It adds to that building sense of dread that lets you carry off that kind of slow burn. The question is, do you care about the characters that you're told about enough to follow, all the way to the end? And that it's not always the case.
I did not.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? You're not really given a lot of time to, I guess, get to know the characters before the crazy stuff starts to happen. And Anna Taylor-Joy, who's the star of the film, she kind of, I guess, is the one you're meant to have most empathy for, but even she's there's the distance, there's a removal, and I think that's intentional from the director. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned there Midsummer. I think a lot of you guys know by now that's my pick. I've been ranting on about it for the last few days, and it brings us on to Ari Aster. And Ari Aster, I mean, at the moment on the poll, I believe Hereditary is walking it. And I know that's your favorite, Justine. And
Yeah.
for me, it was close, because I absolutely loved that film, and when I first saw it, it was a great experience. Um, what is it about Hereditary that grips you?
For me, when I saw it again the first time, I saw it in a beautiful little theater, the Los Feliz Theater, for anyone that has ever been there. It's very old and vintagey. It's small. It was a good atmosphere for it. In the afternoon, which I don't always go to see afternoon movies either, it was kind of just a beautiful experience. The thing that I think I like the most about it is that Hereditary, when you don't know what it's about, it really starts off as like this family drama. And it kind of emotionally draws you in. It pulls you into these characters and their pain and these very normal, real family dynamics that everyone can relate to. And I think the acting is really good that it does that. So when the movie kind of finally turns and it becomes horror, it's just, it is, the scene is the way to explain it. I mean, it just flips upside down and changes, and you're just hit in the face with it. And I think that's incredible. And then after that, the ride just keeps going. And I know a lot of people hated the end, but I didn't hate the end. I feel like it was fine. Like, I don't know what everybody else wanted from the end, but I thought it was perfect the way it ended. I think visually, again, it was very stimulating. There's a lot of hidden things in it. But I do really like the way the movie switched. I think that it was done well, because a lot of movies try to do that flip and they can't do it. So I think it kept you emotionally attached and in it, and I don't feel like Midsummer did that as much. That's where that difference is to me. Those characters I didn't like. I didn't care about any of them, actually. But when I watched Hereditary, I cared about every character. I felt empathetic towards them and what they were going through and all of these things. So that's kind of the big difference between those two to me. But I think any movie that actually gets you, which for me, I've seen so many things, I'm so desensitized, I think that's really powerful. Like, I'm involved in it, and I think that's hard with a lot of newer horror movies.
Yeah, certainly. Jamie, what did you feel about Hereditary?
I agree. I mean, I'll pretty much just piggyback off what Justine said, is that the key to it is giving you characters, giving you time to get to know the characters and go along for the ride. And that's something we just don't, well, I mean, except for these recent films that we're talking about, this great spate, we haven't had as much in cinema. It takes a lot of daring to let a scene breathe, to let a character breathe, to really kind of give you time to get inside and get to know them, and then say, okay, yeah, I'm going to go along for this ride. Like in The Lighthouse is super daring. It's like, what, 2 actors through the bulk of the whole thing. And if you hate these guys, you're in for a heck of a dreadful ride. But the character,
and one very well-trained seagull as well.
Right, yeah, exactly. But the character work is so strong, to go back to parts of The Lighthouse, that it pulls you in, like the various telling of the old sea tales and the singing that they do, and how it's all part of the ritual and this building towards this, whatever this undeniable ending is, that all these films seem to feature in a lot of ways. This kind of this inevitable conclusion that seems obvious only upon hindsight, but yeah, that's part of what makes them so great.
Yeah, Thomas has joined us, and he mentions about Ari Aster, the director of Hereditary and Midsummer. He says he makes the film look and feel different. Fairly heavy film, junkie. I love this work only because it is different and there's such textures to his film. And I agree. Yeah, he's working on a level, where everything feels intentional, and I think that's why Hereditary and Midsummer are, kind of topping the poll at the moment, because I think people respond to that.
Well, I appreciate the use of these 2 movies too, almost as bookends, or one is very dark and one is like the light. I appreciate that aesthetic, that though that feeling is just so coherent throughout it, not just like a lighting choice. They're both kind of about witchcraft or paganism and things that are kind of similar topics. Again, what bothered me about Midsummer is I feel like it is so similar to Hereditary in the way it's like the bumps go, but and again, I just thought Hereditary did it better, but I like that they are almost like bookends. It's like the light side and then the dark side of almost like this very similar topic. So I think that there's a lot of artistry that it takes to do that. And an interesting choice to make 2 bookend movies back to back, actually, that are so similar but so different.
Yeah, and Scott points out that the acting in the film, Alex Wolff in particular. I mean,
Yeah.
Gabriel Byrne. I came out of that movie and I was thinking Gabriel Byrne is the thing that holds it together. He gives a real kind of subtle, nuanced performance, and not a lot of people, kind of recognize that. But it's always fun to see him popping up on the big screen. So yeah,
Well,
I read it.
he's got that like anchor to the family. Like, so that's where I guess it doesn't get as much, maybe again, appreciation as you would say, but that's what makes it real. That's what makes you buy into it, because that's a real family dynamic, right? Anybody that's got
Right.
a weird family, there's one person that's trying to like keep it all together.
Yeah, and it's
So,
also pretty dark because he's a psychologist in the film, and they kind of hint towards that he was Annie's psychologist.
mhm.
And that's ethically is probably a bit of a grey area, but yeah, it's definitely hinted towards that. They had some sort of thing whilst he was treating her, and those are the sort of nuances that Ari
Mhm.
Aster gives us. He doesn't tell you the whole story; he lets you kind of go back and rewatch, and then make up your own kind of stories around that. And I think that's very clever.
Yeah, I think again, he also doesn't make you work for it too much, because I actually get really irritated when people try to be so ambiguous and it's not intentional. Again, I think it's just that you don't know how to make a well-crafted movie that leaves it open-ended for your mind and your imagination versus just sloppy work. So he definitely doesn't do that. He gives you enough and then wants you to think about more, which is amazing.
Mm.
Exactly. And that's not easy to do. I mean, you can go through cinema and count on maybe one hand the films that you still have questions and questions about, days and years after you've seen them. Something like a masterwork like Kubrick's 2001 that takes you along for the ride, but then doesn't give you any sort of answers whatsoever. And it's just the sign of an excellent filmmaker.
Totally
Yeah, I
weird
think.
side note. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I would say
Ladies first.
Alamo Drafthouse actually did like this special thing where they did 6 movies on each set that was supposed to be like the happy movies, which aren't very happy, and the sad movies that he picked. And
Right.
yeah, you could actually rent them all. And to be honest with you, the choices he picked in both sections were very interesting. So if you are into him as a director, I would definitely check that out, because his influences and these movies that he picked, he wanted you to see, were not what I would have expected, like actually. So that was interesting too.
Yeah, he's a complete cinephile, and I've heard him talk a few times. I mean, he was even kind of hinting that his next film might be a comedy. I can only imagine what sort of comedy that twisted mind would come up with. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he comes up with next. So that was Justine's number one, Hereditary.
Yep.
Did it make it in your top 5, Jamie?
Yeah, it did. It did make my top 5. Like I said, I don't have to judge the numbers. I don't know, it was 4 or 3 or something in there, but yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
What were the movies from A24 that didn't connect with you?
I'm like, I got bottoms, but I'll let you go first because you were being generous.
Yeah, well, go ahead. Why don't you offer some suggestions?
Tusk. That's an easy one. I
Tusk
think.
is a hard, yeah.
I mean, and again, it's not that I don't like Kevin Smith. It's not that I'm not into weird movies. I think it's actually the perfect example of you can have a lot of really good things and good ideas and just make a bad movie. So to me, that's what Tusk is. And I don't even really think it's interesting. I think it's just too contrived. It's just not good.
I still have to see it. We were talking about this last night, and yeah, I don't know why I didn't see it when it came out, but there was something that was, off-putting for me. So
Good luck.
I'll check it
Enjoy.
out.
But yeah, I mean, Tusk was definitely in my bottom. The Witch we
Yeah.
talked about, so we got that one.
Tusk was probably better as a podcast idea than an actual execution. Like, I give Kevin Smith kudos for the ideas of just kind of thinking outside the box, but in execution, I'm not 100% on board that he pulled it off. So he's not a great filmmaker. He's a good filmmaker, entertaining filmmaker, but yeah, he needs to keep stretching his legs some more.
He wasn't ready for that. But I know we talked about this for a minute. It comes at night. I know that's controversial. A lot of people loved it. I hated it. The best way I can explain that is I saw it once, knew I hated it, completely forgot what it was about. We were doing this endeavor, so I was like, I should probably rewatch it before I decide I hate it, because I like to do that. And it took me 20 minutes before I remembered the movie again, which is a really bad sign. That means my brain just didn't enjoy it at all and erased it. I will say that watching it during this coronavirus COVID pandemic, more interesting than it ever was any other way than it could have ever been. But I still think it's a bad movie. It's forgettable. And like I said, I would still take us over a lot of the Blumhouse movies I don't like. But at the same time, it was definitely in my bottom 5.
Yeah, to say it likewise, it didn't do it for me. It felt like a movie I'd seen before. And yeah, I didn't think about it after I left the movie theater. Did you see that one, Jamie?
Yeah, I was one and done with that. I wasn't too impressed by it.
It's really
And
forgettable.
it had some talent behind it, you know, but it just didn't cut the mustard.
Definitely did not. I don't know. Again, that's what's hard because I know some people really passionately loved it, and I just don't get why, to be honest. Like I said, the pandemic makes it the most interesting watch it's ever going to be, but it's got nothing else going for it, really, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, films are always about all the baggage that we as individuals carry with us. You know, what do we imprint on? You know, what are those horrific beats from our childhood that still, you know, make the hair on the back of our necks stand up when we're thinking about walking down the hallway to mommy and daddy's bedroom? You know, what's happening in there? You know, those are the roots of all of our horrors. So when we go back and we visit these films or we encounter films for the first time, you know, it's just kind of, where does it fall on that spectrum, our personal spectrum of how does this work for me and how does that not, you know, whereas something like The Lighthouse fires on so many cylinders for me, from in terms of content, like as a filmmaker, and the way that they tried to do it, to pare it down to basics, to get away from, you know, modern methods of storytelling and whatnot, and really, in a lot of ways, kind of try to tell a story of that time period, that 1920s, you know, kind of Lovecraftian, for lack of a better word, bit of cosmic horror, but it's really just about, you know, it's a dark character study about two guys spiraling into madness, which a lot of these films are. It's about somebody going mad.
Yeah, and we touched
Or
on this
already.
last night as well with the hype machine for certain movies. You know, expectations can be so high, and I think It Comes at Night, you know, was, before it came out, there was a lot of positive feedback, and so, you know, you go into that expecting something and then, you know, being disappointed, and that's inevitable in this day and age. You can't escape the hype. Whereas you know, back in the day when we used to go into video stores and, you know, find the movies themselves based on literally the artwork on the video box.
Right.
There's something more special about that, isn't it? Finding a movie yourself and kind of owning it in a way.
Well, that's something.
Sorry, like, we're gonna talk over each other. But I mean, honestly, I will say though, every A24 movie probably that we've talked about, other than It Comes at Night, I've had no idea what it was about. I've just known if people liked it or didn't. I'm really weird about that. Like, I don't want to hear anything about a movie. I don't want to watch a trailer. I don't want to know anything. If I want to go into it, I want it to all be fresh and shiny and new. And again, It Comes at Night was probably the only one that had so much hype that I was like, what was this? But everything else was shiny and new, you know? And so it had not as much expectation.
Interesting.
I was just going to make a comment about cover art. That's a part of the promotional process that we're losing in modern generations, because nowadays your one sheet artwork and your cover imagery is being boiled down into thumbnails. You know, it's got to be a small recognizable thumbnail, you know, usually a person's face or some kind of simple iconic image. And we're losing those old evocative covers that really told stories, that had mix of scenes that were in the film, or perhaps one outlandish exaggeration of something that was supposed to be in the film but never quite appears. You know, that's usually what sold it the most, is whatever that cool, awesome thing with the skull face was on the cover, but then never quite shows up in the movie. But that's definitely a part of just the modern promotional landscape that we're losing. And then we have just the kind of ridiculous trends that trailers will go through. You like, now the trend is, let's find some kind of of classic rock song and have a choir full of kids sing it. And now it's creepy, you know, it's like not necessarily. So that's when I like to see filmmakers that break away and they just tear away all of those preconceived notions and all the modern tropes and traps of filmmaking and storytelling and promotion and just get back to basics. And
yeah, no, I'm personally, I love trailers, and I've never understood people who, you know, don't want to see the trailer. I'll watch a trailer multiple times if
sure.
you know, it's going to get me excited for the movie. But you're right. In this day and age, most of the trailer. I mean, go back to the '90s. I was listening to a podcast this morning about Ghost, the Patrick Swayze Demi Moore film, and they played a clip of the trailer, and it's got the trailer guy, you know, this summer.
Yeah,
Patrick Swayze. I mean, that it seems so so kind of I don't know, just ridiculous now to
but
listen
I
to
love
that.
those. I love
I do
old
as well.
trailers. Yeah, I love like old trailers, all of that stuff. But today it's a lost art form. Like, you know, as well as I know, a lot of movies like show you the whole movie in a trailer.
Right.
Like, what's especially bad movies, it's like, here's the whole movie to try to convince you to watch it, and then you're going to spend 2 hours of your time completely wasted because you could have just watched the trailer. So that's where I try to stay away from it. I do like to watch trailers for movies, but I like to watch them post watching the movie just in case.
Oh, okay,
So
interesting. Yeah,
just because, again, I don't want anything ruined for me. Like, I want to watch a movie blind, you know,
with
which is so
someone
hard with social media.
like Christopher Nolan, for example. Christopher Nolan has this really incredible ability to release a trailer and, you know, just show you nothing of his film, but really tantalize it. You know, he releases, you know, IMAX 8-minute movies, you know, which is essentially a one giant chunk of his film, completely out of context, but it absolutely sells the movie to you because you're like, well, what's going on? And then you go see the film, and that chunk of the film that he's shown you in the trailer is not even in the film, or it is in the film, but in different segments. And I think Ari Aster, actually, going back to him, he does that. I watched the trailer for Midsommar yesterday and Hereditary. I remember watching the trailer for Hereditary multiple times because the hype machine for that coming out of Sundance was big. And it leads you down this different road because you're watching this trailer and thinking, oh, I get what this movie's going to do. I like the looks of it. But then you go and see the film and it's completely different. So, you know,
I think that's a lost art form. And even what you said, poster work, I'm really into 70s, especially like European or even different movie images, kind of like we talked about within Fabric. And I think that that's a lost art form completely. Even merchandising, like how many new cool horror movies like we're even talking about do we get to see like merchandise for? Like, that's a great shirt, that's a great poster, that's a great shirt, and how often do we even really get that stuff? And I mean, that does count A24. It's not like I see a ton of really cool Hereditary stuff or even Midsummer stuff. I would love to have that. So I think that that's, you know, while I think they do a much better job than a lot of other modern companies for horror, I do still crave that. I do still crave those trailers, like you said, that mislead you or want to make you watch it. I do miss movie art. I do miss you know, different variations on movie covers and merchandising that goes with it, like great iconic images that have to do with that movie. I miss it.
Yeah, Gina's saying, want to do well in the box office, hire Drew Stanton to do your poster and cover art.
There you go.
I mean, I think he's still working, Drew Stanton. You know, he's and then Robert's also talking about, I still watch Mad Max Fury Road trailer because it was so good and well made. And yeah, I mean,
that's a good trailer.
That's a different live entirely, but that was a pretty remarkable film.
I'll come back for that one.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, what you're saying about trailers, to me nowadays, trailers are judge, jury, and executioner. I've got to the point where I'm not lenient with trailers anymore. Now I'm like, okay, I'm going to fire you up. I'm going to watch you. Sell me. You've got to sell me. You've got to make me want to go to the theater because I'm tired of fighting crowds that want to talk on their phones through the movies. You know, I'm tired of sitting through movies that wind up being mediocre. So your trailer's got to do it. It's the first part of our interaction. I do like when some of the bigger budget films, or maybe even at the grassroots level, when they do some multimedia, like if there's a comic book tie-in or a podcast tie-in or a novel tie-in. I do like to see those spillovers, or like a web series, even like Ridley Scott did for Alien Covenant, and he had like a series of webisodes that led into it. When they released Blade Runner 2049, they had the Blackout anime that you watched that told the story beforehand. And I think those are definitely becoming a valid part of the art form as we're moving. Everything is becoming mobile. We can't pretend that it's not. You know, everything is moving mobile. So those are just as much a valid part of the promotion now as great poster art and great trailers.
I think that's fair. I crave that other media. Like I said, I'm the worst. I'll watch anything that's horror. I will not discriminate, even if I'm furiously angry afterwards. So I don't even necessarily, like I said, I do the trailer afterwards than before, but I do crave for these beautiful movies with this beautiful imagery and all of this amazing eye candy. Like, where is our poster art? Where is our variation covers for the DVDs? Like, and you know, I mean, if we're lucky, we do get a vinyl of it, and that has like, you know, a fold out that maybe has some of that brings back that cassette tape or CD art that we're missing. But I do really crave that. I crave all of that art that goes with a great movie, and that's the only thing I guess I wish A24 would do a little bit more of. I think they do a great job with everything else, but I want them to kick it old school a little bit more for that. Like, of course, I'm on my phone, but I want it to be in my life too.
Yeah, well, Amanda's pointing out here, do you think Hereditary and Midsummer are performing best in the poll because they're the widest, most publicized releases? And it kind of goes back to what we're talking about, you know, with, in Fabric and the marketing campaigns behind them. You know, it seems that they will pick and choose movies based on, you know, the festival circuit and the pre-hype to promote and push. Whereas other movies might not get the benefits of that. I mean, I don't remember seeing a lot of promotional stuff for Tusk. I don't remember seeing a lot of promotional stuff for The Monster. It Comes at Night. It was, you know, they were pushing that hard, but it didn't hit the notes.
It fell flat. But that's what's interesting to me is that Hereditary was such like a surprise success. I think that it makes a little bit more sense that they would push Midsummer, because you know what I mean? Like, they're like, well, clearly it's Hereditary. People will go see it. And they did, whether they liked it or not. People did go out and see it. They did go to the movie theater. They did rent it when it came out or watched it. A lot of the other movies, you're right, didn't get a push, except It Comes at Night, which was a giant flop for the push that it got. I guess it's like anything else, you know? Like, again, In Fabric was never going to get the push because, like you mentioned, it's British. You know, it's from the UK, and an American audience doesn't know how to handle that sometimes, whether it's the humor or the dialect or any of it, because there's just some small differences between the, you know, cultural upbringing of it. I feel like they're scared to push those movies onto American audiences because they assume that we're not smart enough to appreciate it. And maybe they're right. Maybe that's fair. But I feel like that's half of what the problem is with the publicity, is that, you know, they try to take the dumbest down movies to push out to people. And again, It Comes at Night was the dumbest down movie ever because, like you said, it wasn't even original. So that's the thing that's kind of a bummer, is that they do have such a great product. I wish they would just go for it, you know? Like, we're here for it.
And it's up for the fans nowadays. I mean, the fans create these incredible Mondo posters, and you know, so some of the posters I've seen recently for these incredible films just blow me away. You know, they're much better than anything that the studios provide. And Thomas points out that I love films that I can pause anywhere and the image is worthy of a frame wall print, and that's really the mark of a great filmmaker, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Most of these movies that we're talking about, at least the good ones, we didn't get through all of my hate list yet, but most of the good ones are stunning. They're stunning. They're beautiful artwork, just, and again, every shot in the music selection, all of it, like, it's such a well-rounded piece of art, which again, there's not always as much of appreciation for in some of the horror communities as I think there could be. Sometimes people really do just want what I like to say are popcorn movies, or at best, almost really their comfort zone of horror, and this takes that out of it. Like, I know you guys talked about how some of this was more like psychological, but psychological is horror. That is the point of horror. It is something that's terrifying to you, that it's a reality. So I think all of these do count as horror to whatever degree, but they don't fit in a box, and a lot of people don't want to take a chance outside of their box. So that's what's a little bit hard, because like I said, every movie on this A24 list is absolutely worth the price to rent. It's absolutely worth the time to watch, even if it was terrible, versus almost anybody else putting out horror right now as a whole. I mean, again, they're all something that's at least interesting enough, whether you liked it or not.
Yeah, I mean the killing of a sacred deer and enemy are kind of examples of these movies that are really good. They come from, you know, strong directors, but you know you might watch them and think, oh, what's going on? You know, I don't understand this film. And maybe that's why they're not performing so well in the polls. But I think you're right there. A24 kind of have an edge over their competitors with classy horror.
Yeah, and I guess thinking outside the box, not giving you what you expect. Like, again, we'll get into that with Bloomhouse, but I like some of it because it's easy. It's popcorn movies to me, and I do love a dumb, terrible, fun horror movie. I love it to the core of my heart. But, you know, I've been watching horror movie for 30 years. I want to watch something. I want something different. I want something fresh. I want something that I'm passionate about. And I do feel like A24 gives that a little bit more. And I think Enemy and I think Killing of a Sacred Deer, I didn't like Enemy as much, but it's not terrible. Killing of a Sacred Deer is actually a very interesting movie. Whether you like it or not, it's very interesting.
It's weird.
That's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah, I think like that's the best way to describe both those films. Just strange, weird.
Yeah. Yeah, but as much as I didn't even like Enemy, not to, you know, have too many spoilers, and Enemy is one of the movies that's left for you to not really understand, but there's this spider symbol and idea that goes throughout the movie, but when that spider scene comes, it's by far the best parts of the whole movie. So whether it makes sense or not, those like 3 scenes of spiders are all by far the most interesting thing that happens throughout the entire movie, and it's so small, but that's what's interesting.
Apparently the cast had to sign a confidentiality agreement so they wouldn't speak about the spiders and the meaning of spiders in that film,
even after it came out.
Yeah, so it's completely left up to the audience's
so that it
interpretation.
Stays a mystery.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think it has something to do with how the male spider is less dominant than the female spider, and how.
Well, yeah, I've seen a lot of things where they talk about that as like, I keep losing my ear thing. They talk about it like women's sexuality and like women's superiority is what the point of the spider is, and that's what they're getting across. But to be honest, I almost feel like that's not what it is. I almost feel like that's too obvious. I almost feel like this weird undertone of spiders that don't make any sense in there. Maybe that's part of it, but I think it's something else. Maybe it's the fact that spiders and arachnophobia is a really common fear, and it's going to trigger something in you automatically. It could be that simple, but I do think it's interesting more than the whole movie itself that they use this spider idea and symbolism to try to kind of convey something and never answer any questions, because at least that's different to me. As much as I didn't necessarily love the movie, that was weird. The spider scenes were cool, and it was weird that they did those. There were interesting choices. So, and again, it makes you want to talk about it. Like, what? Yeah. How cool is it? Do you see a horror movie and you want someone else to have seen it so you can talk about it? Like, that's what you're supposed to do if you love horror, right? But exactly. not every movie makes you go, oh my God, who saw this? Who can I talk to this about? Because I don't understand, and it's so weird.
It provokes discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that is what you want from a movie going experience. Lewis has joined us. Hey, Lewis, how you doing? Amanda says Sacred Deer was absolutely strange. The interaction between some of the characters made me uncomfortable, notably the boy and the doctor. Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
It was a strange movie, but it did get under my skin. You know, I thought about it afterwards. It stuck with me. And again, it's another film that has a great performances. Jamie, what's your least favorite A24 film?
Do the Paranormal Activity films fall under that banner, or is that somebody else?
So that's Bloomhouse. So yeah, basically this entire month, what we are going to be doing, we're going to be doing A24 versus Bloomhouse. It's the smackdown. A24, we're focusing on this week. We want everybody to get involved and vote for their favorite A24 film. If you go to madmonster.com, you'll be able to see the poll there. Place your vote, get your friends and family to do that. And
yeah,
then
least favorite, I couldn't really say. I'm one of those people that focuses on the positive and everything, in trying to make my own projects and seeing other films come to life. I always just try to see try to see something in there, try to see a kernel of what they were trying to do. I'll always try to meet the filmmaker halfway, which I think is something that some of our modern audiences have really lost, and that they don't want to meet a filmmaker halfway. They do want a lot of things explained to them. Well, at least in regards to like a larger cinema going audience, that group that the studios is trying to pander to, who ultimately don't, I mean, they don't want to be pandered to. They do and they don't, but they aren't going to come in to see the quality of the films that we're talking about. These A24 films, they're always going to have a home in art houses and near colleges and that sort of thing. And that's okay. I mean, as long as we still have a venue to go and find them, then that's all we need.
Yeah, Gina and I spoke about this yesterday as well, and just how A24 seemed to really champion young filmmakers, and give them an opportunity to make the movie that they want. It doesn't strike me that there's a lot of interference coming from A24 saying, "Oh no, take this up, do this." They're really giving carte blanche to the directors, and that's nice, because it means that you're going to hear kind of unique voices a lot more.
I think that. Oh, sorry. I'm like, no, but I think that's what. Yeah, I think that's what the reason my other last two is Life After Beth and The Monster. I think that's why they're so disappointing. I mean, if you haven't seen those are not on the A24 standard. They're much more unoriginal movies, to be honest.
Yeah, there's Life After Beth there.
Yeah, that's not the first movie to have a zombie comedy love story. Wow. And Monster was slightly more unique, but the poster's cooler than the movie.
Yeah.
But that's where I think it's weird. Like, most of the movies we've talked about, even like, again, Tusk, if you hated it, at least it was, or The Witch, it was different, right? It was not what everyone else does. It still had a style. Right. It was interesting. I think, and I know a lot of people yesterday said they loved Life After Beth, so I'm sorry to be the bad guy. I will keep being the bad guy though. It's just so average and boring and not original. And so in The Monster, again, it was more original, but at the same time, like, yeah, see, I know, I'm sorry, but
Amanda loved it.
I know, I'm apologize.
And she also said, I've determined I'm not much of a fan of art house horror.
Right, and there's definitely a lot of those people. And again, I think that everyone that feels that way will get more into maybe the Blumhouse stuff next week. I think that will probably be a little bit more of a heyday for everyone. Just call it a hunch. Totally forgot.
And you got Hunter here as well. Hey Hunter, how you doing? Totally forgot that Enemy was the Spider movie, as I did forget that it was A24. Damn, they make good movies. Hunter was championing the Witch yesterday. I know he's a big fan of that film. I mean, some of these movies are forgettable, but when you're reminded of them, they kind of creep back into your consciousness. And that's, I think, the most impressive thing about A24 is a lot of their movies, if not all of them, kind of demand a rewatch. Because on a rewatch, you might get a different appreciation for them. And, in this day and age, not all of us have the time to sit down and rewatch movies, especially when there's so much new content always being, flung at us. But they are worthy of a rewatch. And I think that's what A24 do spectacularly well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good
overall,
point.
Again, yeah, overall, it's a slam dunk, I think, really. Like I said, even the movies I really didn't like or I didn't feel were very good for A24, they're worth watching, which is rare.
And one of the things that we're talking about too is also the wide umbrella that is horror. We're not all going to have the same taste. A lot of people will sit through something like The Lighthouse or maybe Midsommar and think that it's just boring, that nothing happens. They can't get into a quote unquote slow burn movie, but that doesn't make it any less horror than something more slasher and obvious, like our beloved Friday the 13th films or what have you. But that's the great thing about it, is that we have this wide umbrella that it can all fall under, whether it's something all the way out to from have to bring up the Wicker Man at some point if we're going to talk about Midsommar, all the way up to the Universal films and just everything, all up to just kind of the brutal stuff, your New York what, Never Torture a Duckling, stuff like that. New York Killer.
Fulci,
Yeah, sure, Fulci stuff. It has a very, very different approach. Whereas, like when my younger sister was growing up, the scariest film she ever saw was Scream. To her, Scream was the most horrifying thing ever. And if I tried to get her to watch it, she would kind of freak out on me. Whereas myself, Scream is not such a big deal. To me, it's a bunch of scrawny, teens running around running around doing cosplay. I would just slap them and take that knife from them, But then if I watch something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where you've got Leatherface, who's this hulking, maniacal figure, just twirling and flailing with a chainsaw, something like that is much more intimidating.
Well, I think that's why what we're doing is really cool, though, because they are two companies that we're going to pit up against each other that are not very similar. I think it opens it up for everybody who likes all different kinds of horror to be able to talk about what they're passionate about. I'm really into brutal French horror, so I know I am on the outskirts. I am your cult movie queen. I know that my taste level is a little bit different. So, but it's really cool to be able to find these movies or talk about these movies that I love instead of always having to talk about like whatever Hollywood movie put out that everyone loved that's kind of like at the same time or forgettable. So what's really important about this to me, and again, I'm just happy we started with A24, is everybody that's out there. We want you to disagree. We want you to comment and participate and vote. That's what's fun about this, So I love the variety. But yeah, I know that not everyone's art house horror. I know I'm on that side. I know I like the stuff that nobody else likes, but that's what I'm here for. So
audiences have changed as well over the years. I mean, I've spent a lot of time in movie theaters, and I watch audience reactions to things. And, most of the time you've got people who, need to check their phone every couple of minutes who, unless there's some sort of explosion in their face, they're not, looking at the screen. It drives me crazy because why would you buy a ticket for a movie to just sit there, not paying attention? But that's just the modern day era with too many distractions. So yeah, it's difficult for people to, dedicate themselves fully, I think, to some of these stranger slow burn movies. Yeah, the focus element. You mentioned French horror there, Justine. What is your favorite extreme French?
I think it's hard, but I am definitely a sucker for High Tension. I think when it came out, it was just so fresh, so brutal, so femininely brutal. Just such a different take on things. I love Inside. I feel like that actually almost has the same things I just said. So those would probably be my two favorites, honestly. Yeah, I was like, those are probably my top two in French horror. But and again, sometimes it's very brutal. Maybe the story's not as good. But again, it gave us High Tension and Inside, and those are incredible movies, whether they're hard to sit through or not. If you want to even talk about the horror genre, I can't comprehend how someone could say they love horror and appreciate the graphic, different view that French movies have. And then, gosh, what was it? It's that newer one that came out. It was incredible, the dancing one. I can't even think of what the name of it is right now. It is stunning. I'll have to find it. It is an amazing movie. It's horrible to watch. You will hate everything and be depressed for 4 days afterwards, but it's incredible. No, not Martyrs. It's not that at all. This is real French, brutal, hate yourself, want to die for days, like misery machine, like you hate yourself as a person that you watched it and it bothered you so much, like kind of movie. I'll have to figure out what it's called. It's French and it's about ballet. And it's about a drug ballet, and it's incredible. So as soon as I can remember what it's called, you should all watch it if you're on that side. But like I said, you're going to be miserable for a couple of days, so pick the right time to watch it. But,
yeah, you didn't mention Martyrs there, which I did find interesting. I mean, that one was an extreme movie as well. Inside, I totally love that. I mean, the last shot of Inside, I think, is one of the kind of freakiest things I've ever seen. And in the high tension, that movie in England was called Switchblade Romance,
which is a better title. Yes,
even better. But I mean, that's the thing. I think High Tension's a well-rounded movie for as brutal as it is. It really is.
And the director is Alexandre Aja, and he, I think he would have been really interesting if he got with a company like A24 to see what type of movies he might have ended up producing, because he really seemed to get taken into the Hollywood machine. And he worked on Piranha. He did that crazy alligator movie last year. I can't remember what it was called.
Oh,
The
the Florida one.
hurricane,
Crawl?
alligator,
Oh no, the
crawl.
Crawl.
That's the one.
Yeah, Crawl.
Yeah, it's
I
cool.
did
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Crawl though. I did
yeah,
like that. It's different, but I did appreciate Crawl.
yeah. But
Piranha was fun.
he seems to be making a
It's fine.
lot of Hollywood machine type movies. Whereas I would love to have seen where he went with that more kind of artsy.
Yeah.
I agree with you. If
subdued-
A24 would pick him up, it would be killer to see what he would do
Yeah.
now. Actually, with having that Hollywood side and having the history that was behind it, because a lot of people can't stomach those movies. A lot of people don't like the way it makes them feel, or again, the complexity of working through that. But to me, that's challenging. And I want a movie that challenges me. I want a movie that repulses me or upsets me, because that's what horror's supposed to be. And when you've seen so much horror, you watch 52 girls getting killed, you don't care. You don't, it's whatever. It's fun, or you laugh, or it's not, it doesn't affect you. Like French horror affects you. And I think that that's the job. Like that's the job of horror. Isn't that what you go for, to get scared? How easily do we get scared at this point? So I would love to see that too. I wish A24 would pick up some of those directors, because I think it would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, and I think Ari Aster's are probably about as close as you're going to get to, those levels of extremity, because he's showing you images that are like, whoa, didn't see that one coming, and absolutely get under your skin and kind of stay there for days.
Yeah.
Justine named the two that I had in mind. It's definitely Hot Tension and Inside. Those are the two that immediately spring to mind when you talk about the French New Wave horror. I mean, Hot Tension has such it has a visceral quality to it. I mean, it's kind of a lot like The Lighthouse. I mean, you feel like you're there. You're with the sweat and the grime throughout the whole thing, and even the narrative of it really took me by surprise, the first time. And then Inside, just dealing with a primal fear of for women, I would imagine, but it definitely translates over into something that men find frightening as well. So
High Tension, that's
everybody
some of the best
martyrs.
kills I've ever seen.
It does.
You know what's interesting? I mean, I think Blumhouse actually were responsible for the. They were responsible for the remake of Martyrs and Inside. Inside has an American.
I had wiped it from my mind. Yeah,
they did both.
I'm pretty sure Blumhouse is responsible for the Inside remake as well.
I was already offended that they even tried to do Martyrs, but now I'm extra offended. So Blumhouse will be an interesting one for all of us. But I mean, look, they're great movies. Who wouldn't want to remake a great movie? But I feel like if you're gonna try to do that, like I don't want to preview too much, but they did Black Christmas, which also really offends me. And I never saw it because I will never see it. But it's already my bottom movie because they did it. And I think that no, it's true. Like if you
second remake of that film, isn't it? I mean, it's just
it is.
They redid it, and they redid it different with Bob Clark, and I actually really like it because it is different and it's fun and it's got a different spin on it. Cool. First one, second remake, great. Blumhouse decides to come do a third remake, use the name and change the story completely. What is wrong with you? But I mean, again, like they're not an art house company. If A24 tried to redo some of these movies, I would give it a shot. I mean, I'm not against remakes, but I think you have to do it with some respect to what you're remaking. And they don't respect it at all. They just butcher it and change it. And I mean, again, that's the thing that's kind of a bummer. I'm gonna have to figure out this movie that I cannot remember the name to somehow and tell everyone. But
go online and post it in comments. And
I gotta find the ballet
it's not
movie.
Frontiers, is it?
No, Frontiers is different. And I mean, those are good, but like I said, I just think High Tension and Inside are like they're brutal, but they're full movies.
Sure.
And they're tricky. They're tricky enough that it's not like just repeatedly abusing you as you watch it. It gives you enough time to be like comfortable and then screw you up. And I think that that's probably a little bit easier for people to watch. This one, it's only actually been out for a couple of years. It is, like I said, it's gut wrenching to watch. It's horrible. You're going to hate yourself, but it's so good. So
it's a French ballet horror film. Those are the clues you've given us. Okay.
Yeah, and it's more recent. It's not one of the older ones. So, and it's got one word title, like disco or something. I mean, it's got a one word title of some sort.
Livid.
Nobody watching. No, it's not Livid. That's ballet. That's a different ballet kind of one. I do like Livid though. I not also enjoyed Livid. Yeah, no, it's more recent than that. It's literally and the director has done a bunch of other stuff, but within the last couple of years. If you kind of even look up French horror, I think it comes in. Let's see if I can find it on my cell phone. Apparently, nobody watching has seen it.
No, I mean 2018 is the year of disturbing dance movies. That's why I get here. I'd be interested to hear what this movie is.
I'm gonna look for it. You guys talk. I'll look for it.
Well, when are we going to get to Midsummer?
I mean, we can go.
We could talk all night about Midsummer, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the film for me is just fantastic. I love it. From Florence Pugh, the cast, the set design, the costumes, the soundtrack. It's just a 5 out of 5 movie for me personally. I know that not a lot of people liked it, or not a lot of people loved it. But it's just one of those movies that rewards with rewatches, and I just feel that Ari Aster's working on a next level with his attention to detail.
I found it.
She's got it.
Climax.
Okay, I'm going to make a note of that then.
So, but again, pick your day wisely. We'll go back to Midsummer, but pick your day wisely before you guys do this to yourself. But yes, it's called Climax. And you guys can send me hate mail after you watch it. I'll totally take it. I accept that. But back to Midsummer. Yes.
Yeah. Anything else to say about Midsummer?
For me personally, I actually didn't like it. We kind of talked about this a little before we started to go live. I didn't like it the first time I saw it because of expectation. I went in going to see this versus the way I felt about Hereditary and how much I loved it, and I wanted to be wowed. I kind of spoke about it a little bit earlier, but I felt like it was pretty much the same movie, just the light version of Hereditary. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way the first time. I went back to see it in the theater to see the director's cut because I think it's really important to see director's cuts if you have the option in a theatrical release, because that's the way it was intended to be done. So whether I liked it or not, I wanted to go back and see it again. And again, I liked it a little bit more, but I still wasn't sure about that feeling. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that, again, the characters in Midsummer, I didn't like. I didn't feel anything for. I didn't care about what happened to them. And that's a little bit different than I felt about Hereditary. Now, having said that, when we had to do a top 5 and a bottom 5, Midsummer is in my top 5 with Hereditary. So even though I didn't like it in comparison, I still love the movie. So I think it's still a good movie.
Gina points out there that she loves the fact that Danny doesn't smile until the end. It's the first time you see her experience joy. Midsummer is a really strange movie, and I do encourage people to watch the director's cut if they get an opportunity to. But yeah, Jamie, what was your feelings on Midsummer?
I liked Midsummer. Okay. I've learned to love slow burns over the years. When I was younger, I just hated them. I would watch something and just like, nothing happens in this movie. What the hell is going on? But over the years, I've learned to really enjoy them and get into them and let a movie take me where it's going, and I'll go along for the ride. The only drawback that I had, I don't even really take it as a complaint because I feel like it built upon it, but I feel like the influence of Wicker Man hangs very heavily on the film, to where as soon as they mention going to an island, I can kind of just see the whole movie play out, Wicker Man kind of style, but I don't think it kind of follows those same beats. It definitely sets up its own setting, its own imagery. Though I think, I guess this kind of pagan horror could be its own little subgenre going on, about people endlessly getting sacrificed or helping enact these rituals of life and death and rebirth. But one of the things that, go ahead. I wanted to give you a little something to feed off of there.
No, I think you're right. They intentionally marketed it like a kind of a Wicker Man-esque film, and even Dan jumped on last night and said, "Oh, is that the Wicker Man one?" For me, it was the Wicker Man's one of my favorite movies of all time. So it's far removed from that film. There was a movie a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if you saw it. Actually, probably going back to about 2011, called Kill List. Kill List
is that the official sequel? Was that?
No, that was a
that's a different.
Movie
yeah,
too.
that's a foreign movie too, isn't it?
Kill List is a British film,
Yeah,
and
okay.
it's a hit. It starts off as a hitman movie,
Yeah,
and
that's a slow burn for sure though. I actually had to watch that twice.
yeah, it quickly becomes something else, and there are, you know, significant kind of Wicker Man elements in that as well. Um, but for me, Midsummer, you know, strays far from the Wicker Man,
Mhm.
and a lot of people, you know, I think dismiss it because they think, oh, we've seen this movie before, but it's certainly not that. And we haven't
Well,
even
but I
spoken
think
about Green Room. You know, Green Room is another film that a lot of people are showing some love for, and I know that it's, you know, people are passionate about that as well.
I mean,
I mean,
I think Green Room was fine. I didn't love it. I mean, it was different, so I'll give it that. There's not a lot of movies like that. Again, it's an interesting setup. It's an interesting execution of that setup and that storyline. Um, but I've never it was fine. I never really felt more for it than that. So, but almost everyone I talked to, their top three favorite movies were like Lighthouse, Hereditary. There it is. See, that's my friend, and Green
Ricky,
Room.
Ricky.
Yep, that was it. I mean, they really were having a hard time picking between those three. Um, Overall, I think if someone didn't like Lighthouse, they liked Witch. I feel like they liked one or the other. I don't feel like most people liked The Witch and Lighthouse. So there's definitely a divide through that. But basically, those are the top three movies that I have heard throughout everything. I know that again, Midsummer's been a big favorite for you guys, but no one's brought that up to me. It's been Hereditary, so that's what I've heard. And Green Room is always on there.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas points out here after repeat viewings, it's so damn unusual. Trippy aspect mixed with slow burn, and yeah, Ari did his research. He actually built
Well,
that entire village, you know, over the course
yeah.
of like 6 months. You know, that's all
Mm.
there. It's all real. It's
Well, that's
pretty
what I was going to
amazing.
get to too. I think it's really important when you choose to do a movie about paganism or witchcraft at this point in time that you do your research, as that was just said, and you teach the viewer something, but you still have to do your homework about it because otherwise, at this point, there's tons of movies that are about Satanists and witchcraft and paganism, but they're half-assed. They're not anything. They're not believable. They're not interesting. Like there's too much of that genre, I guess, at this point. And
Mhm.
you do have to give your viewers something new or interesting. And I think that he did that with it because how many of us even knew about that festival at all before we watched that movie and went home and researched it and learned more about it and understood the pagan background and how maybe this movie could be realistic. And I
Yeah.
think that's the job you want when you bring up a topic like that. I think you want to make the viewer learn something and go home and research it. I think that's what you want.
Hunter actually mentioned this last night about the comparisons between Texas Chainsaw and Midsummer. And when he initially said that, my mind was blown because, you know, I think there are definite threads there that you could probably follow, and you could have an interesting discussion on that.
I
Guys, we've hit way over the hour mark, but let's have some
really
closing thoughts on A24. Are there any closing thoughts? Have we covered everything?
Again, you should all be at home using that list and watching every single movie and making sure you're voting, make sure you're commenting, make sure you're talking about all of it. Again, this is going to go on. This is going to turn into other things, but it's really more fun if you guys participate. It's really more fun for us to, I think, hear to where you're at and what you think. So watch those movies you didn't see so that you can comment on them, have an opinion. I think debate's really important. I don't think we should all feel the same way. I think we should bring different things to the discussion about horror because we're all passionate about it. So we should welcome each other to be, have some conflict. And again, I think hopefully stuff gets really rowdy when we get into that later part of this. I hope that we can have some more debate and have a little bit more fun. Not everybody has to like the same things. And I think that
I
that's
know
what's
I know
beautiful.
you're going to get into it with Bloomhouse, that's for sure.
I'm so ready. I've been waiting my whole life for this. Yes, but I will.
So
So I did
uh,
like some Blue House, so there's still some good stuff. But again, I want people to participate. I think that's what makes this more fun.
so I'm just going to give
So
you a
that's
quick reminder of the movies that we've got to vote. You've got Enemy, you've got The Black Coat's Daughter, The Killing of the Sacred Deer, In Fabric, The Monster, Life After Beth, Green Room, Tusk, The Lighthouse, It Comes at Night, and the top three at the moment are The Witch, Midsummer, and Hereditary, which is actually sitting pretty there at number one. Hereditary's taking all the love. So if you guys feel differently, make sure you get people involved. Tell them to vote. Jamie, any closing thoughts?
Sure. My closing thoughts would be pretty much to echo what Justine said, just that if you've seen any of these A24 films, to go check out the rest. There are a few that we've talked about that you guys mentioned that I haven't seen. I haven't seen The Green Room yet. And a lot of these, it's just because they fly under the radar, where I'm having to learn about it after it's come out. I'm having to get word of mouth from people that were at festivals, or from this community or that community, which is a good thing about Mad Monsters, that we can all keep each other informed when we do find something good. But definitely, if there's something under that banner that you like, to definitely seek out the rest and give them support and let them know that, hey, there's an audience out here for these films. If you have a way to see it at your local art house theater, I always say 100% go. Those are the best absolute screenings you'll ever go to. You're not dealing with the regular public, with people that are checking their phones all the time. Nowadays we have great theaters where you can sit down with a beer, maybe get something to eat, and people are there to have a great time. And if you like these films, go support them so they'll keep making more.
Support art house, support theaters.
Hopefully we'll be back in movie theaters soon. Certainly here in LA, we're still waiting. Amanda's on a sushi date with her boyfriend, but tuned in just to be with us. So
whoever's eating with you is so mad at you right now.
Cheers.
And she plans to rewatch a few of these movies. Guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Just give a shout out for your social media where people can find you and follow you.
I'm Justine _gorgeous with the E, because it's gory. Get it? Gorgeous.
And if you liked anything I had to say, you can find all things MVP over at the MVP blog at mutantville.com. I'm on Twitter at JTMCROBERTS. You can find me at the same Instagram handle, and spread out throughout Facebook, and wherever you prefer to haunt your social media, we'll be there somewhere.
Fantastic. And guys, remember, go to manmonster.com, check out Justine's awesome review on In Fabric, and make sure you vote. This is going to continue. We are going to get to the bottom of this, and there can only be one at the end.
I'm going to fight.
Lovely seeing you all. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye now.
Bye.